Hello, all you freedom-loving people. The FBI is making progress in many cases, including against alleged child sex predators and the alleged interference with the 2020 election, and NATO leaders praise President Trump as the big daddy on the world stage. Okay, let's get into it. Last week, we reported about FBI Director Kash Patel revealing an intelligence report about alarming allegations that are related to the 2020 election. This FBI report included allegations of Chinese Communist Party interference in the 2020 election. The report raised concerns that China allegedly mass-produced fake U.S. driver's licenses in order to hijack the 2020 election with fake mail-in ballots for then-candidate Joe Biden. We also reported that President Trump called for the Department of Justice to appoint a special counsel to investigate the 2020 election. And now there are some new developments regarding the FBI report. Yesterday, Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino alleged that the FBI's prior leadership chose to play politics and they withheld evidence from Americans. Patel located the evidence based on information that Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley got from whistleblowers, and then he forwarded it to the FBI. Patel and Bongino said in a statement, based on our continued review and production of FBI documents related to the CCP's plot to interfere in the 2020 U.S. presidential election, previous FBI leadership chose to play politics and withhold key information from the American people, exposing the weaponization of law enforcement for political purposes during the height of the 2020 election season. They also said, thanks to the great oversight work of Chairman Grassley, the information the old FBI regime covered up will now be released to the public. This FBI leadership team will continue keeping our promise of aggressive transparency and working around the clock to fix the underlying problems to restore the FBI to the trusted institution the American people deserve. And the current FBI leaders have also said that they are committed to cracking down on violent crimes during the summer months. Recently, Bongino said that 449 child sexual predators were arrested and more than 200 children were rescued in 2 recent operations. In a post on X, Bongino said that during Operation Restoring Justice in May, 205 alleged child sex predators were arrested. That operation also led to 764 purveyors and the rescue of 115 children. And during another operation called Soteria Shield, which was concluded more than a week ago, 244 alleged child sex predators were arrested and 109 children were rescued. The nationwide Summer Violent Crime Crackdown Project aims to lower the murder rate. Bongino also said the FBI is making progress on other major cases. They include the COVID-19 cover-up, the leak of the 2022 Supreme Court draft before it overturned Roe v. Wade, and those mysterious pipe bombs that were left outside both the RNC and DNC headquarters on January 5th, 2021. And there's more to come. Bongino said the FBI and other federal agencies have arrested, imprisoned, and deported thousands of illegal migrants. And in response to the recent riots in California, Bongino said that authorities have made more than 700 arrests. Earlier this month, the riots erupted in Los Angeles and several other cities over immigration raids that were carried out by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in previous weeks. And then today, Border Czar Tom Homan revealed that he and his wife live separately now because of death threats against him. In an interview with New York Post columnist Miranda Devine, Homan discussed the threats. Homan said, "My wife's living separately from me right now, mainly because I work for many hours, but mostly because of the death threats against me. I see her as much as I can, but the death threats against me and my family are outrageous. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I had 1,000 protesters at my home in upstate New York, my lake house." The New York mayoral race has taken a surprising turnaround. Assemblymember Rohan Mamdani will likely be the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City. Andrew Cuomo conceded the race on Tuesday night before the final results of the ranked choice voting were clear. Mamdani is a 33-year-old self-described Democratic socialist. He ran a campaign centered on making New York City more affordable. He proposed free universal childcare, creating city-run grocery stores, rolling out free bus service, and freezing rents on rent-stabilized units. Last month, Cuomo was 12 points ahead of Mamdani in the first round of the Emerson poll. But in a poll that was taken the day before the official voting day of the primary, Mamdani outpolled Cuomo in the final round of the mock sequencing election, 52% to 48%. This round of numbers showed that Mamdani's support had risen dramatically since the same poll last month, while Cuomo's support hadn't changed much. 5 months ago, Mamdani's approval rating was only 1%. That's why Cuomo praised the campaign of Mamdani as very successful.
Put forth, and I'm proud of the issues that we discussed. But tonight was not our night. Tonight was Assemblyman Mamdani's night, and he put together a great campaign, and he touched young people and inspired them and moved them and got them to come out and vote. And he really ran a highly impactful campaign. I called him, I congratulated him, I applaud him sincerely for his effort, and let's give him a round of applause and thank him for his campaign.
The poll shows voters who are under 50 backing Mamdani by a 2-to-1 margin, while Cuomo led 63% to 37% among those who are 50 to 59 years old, and he also led 56% to 44% among those over 60. In terms of ethnicity, Hispanics were more supportive of Cuomo at 60% to 40%, and blacks were more supportive of Cuomo at 62% to 38%, while white voters were more supportive of Mamdani at 61% to 39%, and with Asian voters supporting Mamdani 79% to 21%. So Mamdani will likely be the nominee and face off against incumbent Eric Adams, who is running as an independent, while the GOP candidate has not yet been selected. The FTC has accused Walmart of allowing fraudsters to use its in-store money transfer service to defraud consumers out of hundreds of millions of dollars across the U.S. In an agreement that was released on Tuesday, Walmart agreed to pay $10 million to settle the case. The FTC investigated the case for several years and initially filed a lawsuit in June of 2022 against Walmart. The complaint alleges that between 2013 and 2018, Walmart, including as an agent for MoneyGram, Western Union, and RIA, allowed fraudsters to use its remittance service to defraud consumers, causing hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. The commission voted 3-0 to make a final ruling that Walmart must comply with a new set of terms to prevent similar fraud from occurring in the future. For example, Walmart cannot offer wire transfer services without implementing fraud detection and prevention measures. It is also prohibited to support telemarketers who use cash-to-cash transfers for payments. Implementing new technology that allows open-source blockchains such as Stellar to track all transactions and enabling clawbacks would also further alleviate the money transfer systems from being used for fraud. After unparalleled success, President Trump's decision to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities was met with opposition from members of Congress. The opposition to the strike on Iran started last week. Last week, the likelihood of a direct U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear facilities was growing. Representative Tom Massey, a Kentucky Republican, and Representative Ro Khanna, a California Democrat, jointly introduced a war powers resolution calling on President Trump to terminate the deployment of U.S. military forces against Iran unless authorized by Congress. Khanna is a radical Democrat. Massey, on the other hand, is a Republican who favors libertarian principles and has disagreed with President Trump on a range of issues, including tax cuts and the budget bill. The resolution was submitted as a privileged resolution, so Massey and Khanna could force the committee to send the resolution to the full House for a vote, even though House Speaker Mike Johnson opposed it. However, Massey said on Monday night that he would not move forward with this proposed resolution if the ceasefire between Israel and Iran holds. But on Monday, 3 Democratic House members introduced a similar resolution aiming at forcing all U.S. troops involved in the operation without congressional approval to withdraw from Iran. The three legislators are Representative Gregory Meeks, a Democrat from New York, Representative Adam Smith, a Democrat from Washington, and Representative Jim Himes, a Democrat from Connecticut. Representative Al Green, a Texas Democrat, even proposed impeachment of President Trump through a fast-track process privilege resolution on the grounds that President Trump has abused his office by using military force without congressional authorization. But the House of Representatives overwhelmingly rejected the proposal on Tuesday. In the end, 128 Democratic lawmakers voted with 216 Republican lawmakers to shelve the bill, including House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. The vote was 344 to 79. Dozens of progressive Democrats supported Green, including Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Congresswoman from New York, who has been the most forceful in calling for President Trump's impeachment. Last Monday, Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat of Virginia, introduced a resolution in the Senate reaffirming the provisions of the 1973 War Powers Resolution. It will require the president to cease using U.S. armed forces to take hostile action against Iran unless Congress explicitly authorizes a declaration of war against Iran or grants the president specific authorization to use force. The War Powers Resolution requires the President of the United States to notify Congress within 48 hours when he deploys armed forces without a formal declaration of war. Under the law, military operations must end within 60 days unless Congress declares war or authorizes an extension. Although the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, it has not formally exercised this power since World War II. While critics claim the strikes bypassed Congress in violation of the Constitution, legal scholars noted that President Trump's actions align with established precedent under several legal authorities. The Trump administration cited Commander-in-Chief powers under Article 2, the principle of collective self-defense, as the legal basis for the strike. House Speaker Mike Johnson argued on Tuesday that the War Powers Resolution enacted in 1973 is unconstitutional. Many constitutional scholars believe that the Nixon-era law, which limits the president's power to unilaterally wage war, violates Article 2, Johnson said. "I think that's right," he added. Johnson also told reporters that President Trump's decision to order strikes on Iranian nuclear targets over the weekend was clearly within his powers under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. Trump administration officials maintain the action was necessary to protect vital U.S. interests and aligned with the decades of bipartisan precedent. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated the operation was launched in response to threats from Iran's nuclear program and to defend U.S. forces and ally Israel. On Monday, when asked if he would allow the Massey and Connor resolution to be voted on in the House, the Speaker pointed out that the introduction of the resolution was purely political because presidents of both parties have ordered military strikes against foreign countries without congressional approval. And Democrats have made no attempt to stop presidents of their own party from doing so. The Obama administration in particular offers precedent relevant to President Trump's Iran strikes. Obama authorized 542 drone strikes across countries including Libya, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, and Pakistan. His 8-month intervention in Libya proceeded without congressional approval, with the White House arguing it did not constitute hostilities under the War Powers Resolution. Obama also expanded operations against ISIS without new authorization. At the NATO summit at The Hague, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte praised President Trump as a man of strength and a man of peace. At the start of his joint remarks with the president, Rutte said, "I just want to recognize your decisive action on Iran. You are a man of strength, but you are also a man of peace. And the fact that you are now also successful in getting this ceasefire done between Israel and Iran, I really want to commend you for that. I think this is important for the whole world." President Trump was also pleased that NATO leaders supported his decision. He shared several texts from Ruta on True Social. One message that President Trump shared said, "Congratulations and thank you for your decisive action in Iran. That was truly extraordinary and something no one else dared to do. It makes us all safer." And to further bring peace to the region, the U.S. will meet with Iran next week after setting Iran's enrichment efforts back basically decades as the ceasefire between Israel and Iran continues to hold. And Ruta also continued his praises of President Trump by referring to President Trump as daddy.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
And to cap off the NATO summit in the Netherlands, at the press conference, President Trump was asked about Ruta's comment.
Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Ruta also praised President Trump's efforts to get NATO members, all except Spain, to agree to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. He added that President Trump had achieved something that no American president in decades could get done. Leaders of NATO member states had mixed reactions to the strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. Last week, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz praised America for doing the dirty work of the West in striking Iran. But French President Emmanuel Macron said on Monday that U.S. strikes against Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend violated international law. During a press conference, he said there's no legality in these strikes, even if France supports the objective of preventing Iran from getting the nuclear bomb. French officials have repeatedly said that they believe the only way to permanently rein in Iran's nuclear ambitions is via diplomacy. The French mindset is also in line with their attitude throughout history. On February 1st, 1979, Iranian religious leader Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran from France after 14 years of exile. This event became a key turning point in Iran's Islamic Revolution, and France played an important role in this process. In 1964, Khomeini was arrested and deported for his opposition to Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's White Revolution and pro-Western policies. He lived in exile in Turkey and Iraq. Khomeini was later forced to leave Iraq under pressure from the Pahlavi and Iraqi government. In 1978, with Khomeini's support for popular protests in Iran and following unrest in Iraq, his residence in Iraq was restricted. This was due to pressure from Savak, which was the secret police of the imperial state of Pahlavi. The restriction of his activities was also because of tacit agreement between Pahlavi and the Iraqi government. Eventually, in October of 1978, Khomeini left Iraq. Iraq did not officially expel him, but they effectively forced him out by limiting his activities. And apparently, other Muslim countries refused to grant him asylum. Actually, historical records do not show that Khomeini directly applied to all Muslim countries and was rejected, but some Muslim countries, such as Kuwait, prevented his entry for some political reasons. So Khomeini personally chose France, and he went there as a last resort. His advisor, Ibrahim Razdi, who was a highly educated nationalist in the United States, argued that France, as a secular state, has a free media environment that facilitated Khomeini's dissemination of the message of an Islamic revolution through the international media. So France allowed Khomeini's entry to the country on a tourist visa, and they did not place severe restrictions on his political activities, even though he was initially asked to refrain from public political activity. While in France, Khomeini used telephone calls and audio tapes to spread the message of the Islamic Revolution to Iran. He attracted global media attention, and he turned the chateau where he settled into an international microphone for the Islamic Revolution. On January 16, 1979, the Shah fled Iran due to domestic unrest, and Khomeini then decided to return to Iran. His team chartered an Air France Boeing 747, and then he flew from Paris to Tehran on February 1st. The plane carried Khomeini's entourage as well as some 120 international journalists. The journalists were present to secure the plane against an attack by the Iranian military. Fearing that the Iranian military might shoot the plane down or assassinate Khomeini at the airport, the plane circled low before arriving in Tehran to make sure the runway was secure. Khomeini's entourage dressed him in a bulletproof undershirt, and he was personally escorted off the plane by the Air France captain. France had sent Khomeini out of the country safely, originally to avoid the diplomatic burden of his continued political activities on French soil. And France also believed that the Pahlavi regime was beyond redemption and that acquiescing in Khomeini's return would be consistent with the values of liberty, and they would avoid antagonizing the Islamic revolutionary forces of Iran. I guess they had not thought about the consequences of going along with the Islamic regime. Khomeini then traveled to the main cemetery in Iran to deliver a speech, declaring the Tsarist government illegitimate and stating that he would appoint his own government. Upon his return, Khomeini quickly overthrew the Shah's regime, ending the Pahlavi dynasty on February 11, 1979, and he established the Islamic Republic. His emergence as supreme leader changed the political situation in Iran, and it influenced the geopolitics of the Middle East, leading to a deterioration of Iran's relations with the West. By offering Khomeini's asylum and assisting in his return, France directly contributed to the establishment of the theocratic regime in Iran. Tomorrow we'll cover the main forces behind the revolution in Iran, and we'll continue discussing a possible regime change at this point. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.